We are neither nutritionists or medical providers. The topics discussed on this show are from our own research and experiences. Please consult your medical provider before attempting anything discussed on this show.
And this is your weekly show discussing how to live an active and healthy lifestyle despite having a diagnosis of Sjogren's syndrome.
Welcome to another episode of Sjogren Strong.
This is Brian.
And this is Lupe.
So, Lupe, why don't you share with the group how you've been feeling lately?
Well, let's see. I'm no longer in school. That's one. So I'm going through school withdrawals. I don't know what to do with myself because I'm not in school. No homework, no studying, no nothing. So I feel a little bit lost.
But we get our weekends back.
That's right. And now we're going to start doing something with our weekends. But how have I been feeling lately? I have a lot of inflammation lately. And it's causing me a little bit of pain to the touch, I don't know, I see it to the point that I don't want to go shopping and buy clothes because I'm like, oh, I got too much inflammation going on. I've actually put on a little bit of weight, and it's not what I'm eating because I believe I'm eating really healthy, but I keep gaining weight. It's kind of inching up and up, and I know it's inflammation. As many of you know, I got a new job, and I'm waiting for insurance to kick in so I could go see my rheumatologist so he could tell me what's going on. But other than that, I'm feeling pretty good.
Yeah, you've been upbeat.
Except my clothes don't fit.
I'm happy to have weekends back of no homework so we can get back out and start doing some stuff.
I mean, for all I know, it's because I've been on my butt hitting the books. That's why, you know what I mean?
Very well could be.
So, I'm going to get with my Fitbit gals. I need to step up my game. We need to get out on the weekends during lunch and hop on the treadmill and do what I can. But on to today's show, we actually want to talk about hiking. As most of you know, we love hiking.
Now, we know some of you may not be comfortable in the outdoors like we are, but you can go on urban hikes. I introduced Lupe to urban hikes, and she says, this isn't a hike, we're walking.
True that.
But the urban hike can be a great way to get out, get some exercise, and still explore parts of the city you may not have explored. Enjoy some green belts that most cities are putting in, and, get out and get some fresh air. So no matter where you're hiking, whether it's the great outdoors or in an urban environment, we're going to go over a few things, common mistakes a lot of people make, but these things can help prepare you for your hike and make it much more enjoyable.
Okay, so you could go on a solo hike if you would like, but you can also go on a group hike, join a club, and you could hike with friends.
And it's a great place to make new friends.
So there's pros and cons to hiking with groups. For example, me, one of my biggest pet peeves is being late. I don't like being late. I'm always early. I'm always 10, 15 minutes early. And I expect people, when I say we're going to start at 8, I expect them to be there at 7:45 so they could be ready to go at 8, And what I've learned from hiking with groups is that you kind of have to put that aside because most people, 95% of the time, are late. Not most people in general, but most people that I've hiked with, you know what I mean? So there's that. You kind of have to put that aside. But that's just me. But hiking with groups is awesome because, like Ryan said, you get to meet new people. You can kind of push each other. You don't want to be left behind or you don't want to leave somebody behind. So you kind of wait for each other. You make friends. And when you kind of want to give up, somebody tells you, come on, you can do it. You got this. And I don't know why that really helps push you along.
And one great thing about hiking with a group, especially if you're new to hiking, is that it provides a security blanket. You're with other people. Odds are there's some that are a little more experienced than you, and you can learn a lot of great tips and tricks to make your hiking experience much more pleasurable.
You can start off by hiking once a week. It could be at a local park. It could be a local trail. There are tons of trails out there. I didn't know how many trails were out there until I actually started hiking. And they're kind of hidden sometimes, but they're out there. Once a week, that's all you need to get started.
And you've heard us talk about a local park before. and it's a figure eight, and it's surrounded by streets and housing tracts. But when you get down into it, it all kind of disappears. But being a figure eight, there's a hill section you can skip, you can do both ways, you can do 2 or 3 times. You can really adjust the level of intensity you want for your hike.
You can do 2 miles in this local park we're talking about. You can do 4 miles. You can do 8 miles. It just depends on what you want to do, the level of intensity you're looking for. If you're having one of those days where you don't know if you want to get out, but you do want to get out, you can walk flat all the way. If you want to push yourself a little bit, you could do a little bit of hills.
And the great thing about local parks is, again, the safety. You're close to help if you need it. You're close to home, so you're not driving very far to hit the trail. And there's usually services like restrooms, porta potties, plumbed running water that's fresh that you can drink and consume.
And there's also a lot of people, this park that we're talking about, if anybody's local to Southern California or Orange County, I should say, it's called Peters Canyon, and it's in Orange, correct, Brian?
I believe so.
Yeah, and it's really awesome.
It's a great place to train. And now that she's out of school, it's the park we're probably going to do a couple of hikes at just to, get our bodies used to walking for miles again.
I used to do that local park 3 times a week, so I'm really excited to start again. So what do you do to prepare for a hike, whether it be local or far away?
Drink water.
Drink a lot of water. Okay, so you want to be sure to hydrate properly. Now, beginners usually carry a water bottle, but the rule we suggest is 1 liter per 2 hours.
So we strive for 2.5 to 3 miles per hour when we're hiking. Therefore, on a 5-mile hike, we would want at least 2 liters of water.
Okay, so let me share a little story that I think is really funny, and my brother's not going to appreciate it, but Jimmy, thanks for the inspiration. So he started hiking recently. He's a newbie to hiking, and I think his first hike was about 5 miles, I believe it was. When he told me about it, I said, I bet you only carried 1 8-ounce water bottle. And he said, yes. And I started laughing because he ran out of water, obviously. Especially, I think guys, they drink more water than girls do. And so he ran out of water the first half of the hike. And so on the way back, he didn't have any water. I thought that was really funny. I mean, it wasn't really funny, but what I'm saying is that beginners usually do that. Oh, really funny? Because I just want to share because I just thought about it. So I love collecting rocks, and I've never said this on the show, so nobody knows this, but I love collecting rocks. And it's really funny because Brian, he likes carrying a big backpack. So he'll start drinking his water, but his backpack keeps getting heavier and heavier and heavier. And why is that? Because if I find a cool rock, I sneak it into his pack.
Yeah, so I'll drink 4 liters of water. I'll consume the calories that I'm packing in, but my bag gets heavier over time. Imagine that.
Okay, one time I found it was this big.
It was at least a foot across. It was a big rock. This rock probably weighed 10 pounds.
It was a really cool rock, and I'm like, I really want this rock. And Brian's like, okay, on our way back, we'll get it. And, he always tells me that. And then we never come back the same way. But I made sure to come back the same way, and he put it in his pack. So he's really cool about it. Anyways, we got off topic, but that's just a funny story. And also, you want to carry essentials. If it's just a local park, you want to carry at least these 4 things, okay? You want to be sure to carry water. We keep saying water, water, water. So water, you want to carry sunscreen, especially because us Sjogis, we're really sensitive to the sun, so you want to be sure to apply it everywhere. I like packing a first aid kit and a little bit of moleskin if possible, and some calories.
Now, if you're going to hit a legit trail, there are the 10 essentials any book recommends you carry. So this is kind of getting into a little more advanced than just, some basic hiking. So I'm just going to run through them really quick. But if you're thinking about hiking seriously, just Google the 10 essentials for hiking and you'll get long laundry lists of stuff. But they are navigation, map and compass, or an app, or some sort of map. In addition to sunscreen, you're going to want a hat, long sleeves, sunglasses, full protection from the sun. You're going to want some sort of insulation or warming layer in case you get stranded or a cold front comes in or whatnot. You can at least stay warm. Flashlight, or we prefer headlamps, extra batteries, a good first aid kit, and moleskin should always be a plus, should always be in any kit if you're hiking, and I'll circle back to that. In addition to a first aid kit, you're going to want some sort of fire starting supplies, and this is basically in case of emergency, a knife and or multi-tool, nutrition extra. Just like finishing a hike with a little water left over, you'll want to finish a hike with some extra nutrition or calories left over. Extra water and or means of filtering water, emergency shelter like a poncho or a bivvy. Now back to moleskin. Even on local city hikes, carrying moleskin can turn a really bad situation into a tolerable situation. We went on a hike one time with an individual that was new to hiking, wearing shoes they've never worn before, so they weren't broken in, with socks that weren't really meant for hiking, and a large blister formed, popped, bled through. We didn't even realize it until we noticed a limp. So when we saw that, we stop, socks off, clean a wound, apply some moleskin, and life is so much better. But when hiking, when you feel what we call a hot spot, when you feel an area on your foot getting irritated and it warms up, that's why we call it a hot spot, that's the beginning stages of a blister. A proper application of moleskin will stop it from blistering and protect it while you continue your hike.
I also remember another story. You know what? This was my first hike ever. This lady, she showed up in flip-flops. I don't know. Did she forget her shoes? I don't know. But she actually walked in flip-flops, and the webbing between her toes, she got a blister there. And of course, Brian, he's always prepared, and he had moleskin, so
little preventive aid can stop things from blistering. So moleskin is always a plus.
Be sure to wear proper socks. This girl, she didn't have proper socks, but not only were they not proper socks, they were those booty socks that you can't even tell you're wearing socks. So the shoe was actually hitting her heel, rubbing on her heel.
Yeah, the sock wasn't even a buffer.
Yeah.
And this is a great segue into proper footwear.
Proper footwear is very important.
So you don't have to spend a lot of money. If you're looking for a new pair of footwear for hiking, check the sales papers, look at the clearance racks, look at last year's models they're trying to get rid of. But there are, your typical street shoes, say Vans, Converse, Skechers. Then you have running shoes, and they're built differently to withstand repetitive weight hitting them, heel and ball of your foot while you're running. And then there's a trail running shoe, which adds a lot of ankle support, but it's got a harder sole on it, so it's going to withstand the off-road abuses of a trail. And then you slowly get up into a boot, and you can continue from there. But I'm a boot guy. I love hiking in boots. I always have. And in my opinion, they saved me from breaking ankles not that long ago.
They did. It popped.
If I wouldn't have had a boot on, I probably would have gotten a helicopter ride out of this canyon.
But we were doing a lot of scattering and climbing big boulders. So, that was unusual for us.
Yeah. I'm a boot guy. Lupe loves a trail running shoe. They work well for her. But you want to get into a piece of footwear that is designed for the activity and the terrain that you're going to utilize it on.
I think for me, it depends on, am I familiar with the trail? If I am, then, I kind of want a light shoe. If I'm not familiar with the trail, if we're just going to go out and explore, I do like wearing boots because you don't know if there's going to be a lot of rocks or what kind of terrain it is. So it kind of depends for me.
I've got a funny story.
Oh, God.
When you take your boots off and tie the laces together and string them over your neck to cross some water, make sure you take your jewelry off. Right, Lupe?
What are you talking about? Oh, my God. So I had this really dainty chain with a pearl pendant, and I took off my boots and I put on my water shoes so I could cross the river. There was a lot of water. And a few days later after our hike, I was looking at pictures of the hike and I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. What happened to my pearl? Gone. It went back to the water, to the ocean, back where it belongs.
Yeah.
It was sad, actually. That pendant meant a lot to me. But Brian, you'll buy me a new one, right?
So, moving on.
I don't know if you guys have outlets where you guys live, but here we have several outlets kind of close by, and I don't need a new pair of hiking shoes or running shoes or whatever. I just wanted a lightweight hiking shoe. We walked into Asics, and they were having a really good sale, and I bought a pair of shoes. It was like $30 for a pair of shoes, and you got the other shoes half off. Well, they must have been more than half because the second pair I got for $12. So that was a really good deal. You want to go to those kind of places.
And when you're at outlets, just make sure you try things on. Do not trust the sizing that's on the label because that's why it might be at the outlet.
True that. I usually wear an 8.5. And so for hiking, I like buying 9s. And this one was like a 10.5. But that's why they're at the outlets, because they're marked incorrectly. So definitely be sure to try them on.
Onto something that's important. If you're just doing a city walk, you don't need to do this. But if you're going to go into the wilderness, it's important to have a trip plan, and you write this down and or email it to somebody that is not going on the hike with you that is somewhat responsible. So basically what a trip plan is where you're going, what time you're starting, what time you're finishing, and what time you will call them when you're off the trail. Plus 20 minutes, if they haven't heard from you, they're going to start calling you. Plus 20 minutes, if there's still no communication, they're going to call the local authorities for that area. Now, we had some discussion about whether we include this and some of these other safety things, and we don't want to scare anybody away, but it's a great idea to do this. So if you do run into trouble, if you do sprain your ankle, if for whatever reason there's any type of emergency at all, somebody's expecting a call from you. And if they don't get it, something's wrong, and help can get out to you a lot quicker. We have local mountains here that we've climbed. We've peaked Mount Baldy, and every year people are injured on Mount Baldy, and people have lost their lives on Mount Baldy. And it's physically difficult, but the trail's pretty straightforward, except for a couple of areas where it gets a little sketch.
Yep.
But people fall, and sometimes it's 2 and 3 days till people even realize they're missing. So it's good to have a plan.
Sometimes, people have a little accident, they slip. Like Brian said, they sprain their ankles. Sometimes they're not wearing the proper footwear.
Sometimes they succumb to the heat.
Yes, especially with those shogies. That's why water is important. It's happened to me one time, a couple of times I bonked, and one time I was so disoriented, and I was actually by myself at my local park that I love going. And I called Brian and I said, look, I don't know where I'm at, and I don't know how I got here, and I don't want to scare anybody off. I knew where I was. I was so disoriented and fatigued, and the heat just got to me that I don't know how I peaked. So, what did he say? He said, go find shade, which I did. And I rested for about 45 minutes, and then I was okay, but I just overdid it.
Lastly here, if you're unfamiliar with hiking, please find a group. Our local outfitter here is called REI, and there's Adventure 16, but an outfitter that prepares people for the wilderness, 9 times out of 10, they're going to offer some basic classes. And not that you have to learn basic first aid or basic land navigation skills. It's good information to have. It's good information to know. And I mean, especially first aid. I think I've provided Lupe first aid a couple of times, and it's basic stuff. Moleskin for a blister. I realize she's being affected by the heat. So let's sit down, get some shade, sip some water, and we're good to go. On myself, once
And Brian, you notice those things about me because I try to kind of push through. You kind of don't want anybody to know that you're struggling, right? But I have a tail, obviously, and he knows it, and he'll just sit me down even if I don't want to. I want to push through it. And yeah, it helps.
It does. But just Lupe and I out hiking on our own, I've provided first aid to more people than I have us. So a little basic skill and a little basic kit can go a long way.
As you all know, I love hiking. It's my happy place. It's where I go to decompress from the stresses of everyday life, get lost in thought, and find some peace. If your happy place isn't the great outdoors, find an activity that could help strengthen you both mentally and physically, and do that. Until next time, sip constantly and stay hydrated.